And Code Keepers, we're in for a new one tonight. 5 things, and I may say the name wrong, and I know you're going to correct me anyway. So, Septima Clark taught Black people that we need to embrace right now. Hopefully, I said it right. Doc teaches. On this picture, we have a couple of civil rights soldiers that are notable. Miss Towles, Rosa Parks. I love saying Rosa Parks because she worked at the Great Hampton University for a little while. All right. Coretta King, Septima Clark, who is our conversation piece for tonight, and Anel Ponder. And it looks like I can't see if it says, I can't read the date. So tell us about this lovely lady standing right next to Coretta Scott King.
All right. So Septima Clark is prolific in doing important work and not wasting a whole lot of time talking for no reason. I will start off by saying Septima Clark, born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, which is where my father and his side of the family are from. And Septima Clark was my Aunt Nita's K through 12 teacher, and my dad also went to that school. So he talks about how he would see Septima Clark in the hallway, and she did not play. Good evening, Emmanuel. Thank you for being here. Septima Clark did not play. He would see her in the hallway and was ready to be a student. And she took it very seriously. She was born 1898. She passed away in 1987. Her work was based in Charleston, South Carolina, but it was not limited to that because her work was just so amazing that it actually reached the span so much that she was a role model for our community, our families, also civil rights leaders, particularly Black men who led the civil rights leader. And there's also pieces that talk about how Septima Clark had similarities and differences compared to Ella Baker in how they addressed some of the difficulties they had in speaking with our people, because of course, civil rights work and a lot of work, including religious work in our communities, are very men-based work. So that's also something that Septima Clark observed, addressed, but did not stay stuck in that because it's considered a distraction for especially Black women who are focused on helping our people. We're distracted by all types of things, to be constantly told to try to change things that are time wasters when there's something larger to change based on our knowledge and expertise.
So what did she change? Because I'm learning about her. I'm learning about her through you.
Okay. Well, I can start the PowerPoint slide.
All right, well, let's do that. Let's go right to the slide. Let's go to the slizzy.
The slizzy.
Keeping it hip hop tonight.
Right. And since the first image you showed with Septima Clark standing between Mrs. King and Quander, it's Quander, right? I can't see what the image is.
I think it says Ponder.
Ponder, okay, yeah. So just important to understand the role that this played in having Black women who are doing this work. And so speaking of Black women doing this work, I do want to give a shout out to my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, our founder, upcoming Monday, January 13th. We were founded January 13, 1913. And we talk about our founders, 22 founders. And we talk about a programmatic thrust of all the work that we do, including educational development, economic development, political awareness and involvement. I'm not going to go through all 5 of them, but everyone can go to our website and just understand that we're talking about a Black women's organization, one of the oldest, but not the oldest, of course, with a large population of mostly Black women in USA and around the world, and what it means to be doing work that's education-based, because most Deltas, no matter the age, are actually educators in some form. So I just wanted to give that a shout out with my sweatshirt on before
All right.
I started talking about Septima Clark. And Septima Clark is not a sore word, but
Okay.
we give a
I was
shout out
about
to
to ask
all.
that.
No, but we give a shout out to all, particularly Black women who are doing this work, no matter the outlet that is used.
All right. You know what? And I can't wait. I know later in the conversation, we're going to talk about this relationship between Septima Clark and Dr. King. So I can't wait till we get back to that. But right now, let's get into your PowerPoint.
All right. So an important contribution of Septima Clark is the Black education theory. So again, Septima Clark, born and raised Charleston, South Carolina, 1898, passed away in 1987. And Black people are the center of providing basic education for our own people. And this is important because when I talk about curriculum development, curriculum changes, class materials, K through 12, and also colleges and universities, I always encourage our people to increase reading factual information, but you can read some falsehoods, but learn how to critique that, but increase knowledge amongst each other. And then we bring the knowledge into schools and the schools can add more knowledge. But our people cannot come into any school without knowing anything, because then the onus is on us to have that learning procedure in our families, in our communities. And this is also something that's the foundation of self-development, collective development. You can see that from a Black nationalist standpoint. You can see that from a pro-Black, Black power, even components of Pan-Africanism. We have collectives that we have regarding race for centuries created so that we can self-develop. It doesn't mean we don't know external powers and problems, but we're not just staring at it like a moth to a flame burnt by fire. It is, we are developing something because we come from knowledge oppression. We are knowledgeable people. We're not an oppressed people. All right. So let's go back to the Septima Clark first slide, please. Because it disappeared. All right. All right. So Black people are the center of providing basic education for Black people. This means minimal education to spark interest and involvement in learning. Septima Clark was, of course, a teacher, but also was doing the community work, helping particularly poor working class Blacks, many of whom are adults, who did not know how to read, did not know how to write, did not know how to do cursive. So if you think about this in terms of people fighting for voting rights, we always explain to people fighting for the right to vote means that you need to also multitask. You can't say, right to vote, give me a ballot, without being honest that you also have a population within our culture who does not know how to do things like reading, does not know how to use a ballot. And you can't just say, I'm gonna teach you how to use a ballot, vote blue no matter who, and all that stuff like that. That's not learning. The process is, this is how to actually read. If you want to research these people, here's how to research people. Here's how to find a simple way to understand it. Here's how to write your name, and here's how to sign your name. So during Septima Clark's days, that was important, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, for voting, but overall knowing how to read, write, knowing how to do mathematics, sciences, because we can't say we want justice without understanding justice means that we're also not looking for rescuers, because that would imply that we have nothing as a people. We come from nothing. And I always tell people, no matter the socio-political affiliation and political party, they all consider us desperate and nothing. And they consider us to not need any explanations. They think they can throw numbers and data at us without us saying, wait a second, we actually have knowledge beyond just believing what you told us. So Septima Clark was one of the key figures, not the only. So other figures are also addressed in a lot of the publications who did this work, but Septima Clark is one of them who I'm highlighting. So the first point here, Black people are the center of providing basic education for Black people. Be patient. Be patient when teaching our people, whether that's your children, your other family members, community members, if you're part of any collectives. Religious groups are very dominant in Black communities, and this could be different religions, different forms of religions, even non-believers oftentimes have collectives. When people say they don't know, this means you have to be patient in explaining. Yes, it can be sometimes frustrating because you're thinking, especially for adults, you're saying, I'm giving you this reading, give it a try, and then let's talk about it. But you have to remember, a lot of people are apprehensive because there might be backgrounds in terms of learning conditions. There could be health conditions, physical, mental health conditions. And a lot of people come from backgrounds where they're told, don't ask questions, just play the game, pretend you know what you're doing so that you won't be judged, and just go through life. So we have to be patient with each other, teaching Black community members who cannot read and write how to teach. Also, Septima Clark highlighted reading newspapers. That's a big deal. Reading newspapers. One thing I want our people to not claim is that we don't have access to any information. Unfortunately, in the 21st century, a lot of our people still claim that information is hidden from us. Information is disguised. Information is stolen from us. And that's not completely accurate as it was a century, 2 centuries, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 centuries ago, right?
Would you consider that we've kind of developed traditions and cultures of not reading?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So even when I'm in communities doing community work in different cities, different states, I meet Black parents who want to tell me they are outraged at this school not teaching something about this book being banned. And I said, why do you care? And they're like, because it's the job of the schools. Yeah, I said, it's their job, and we pay for it through our taxes if it's public school, and also private schools oftentimes will get some funding that comes through our taxes in some way. But why do you care if you yourself do not read? If your children have not seen you read, and what happens almost every time is that Black parents will tell me, I don't like to read. Look here, I got through school. I'm not going to read. I says, well, again, if reading is not valuable to you for you, you're too tired to do it, you don't care, you don't realize that we come from a background of knowledge with tons of books, even thousands of years of Africans writing. If you only want to talk about bestseller books that are like anti-racism stuff and stuff about slavery, then don't be baffled that schools are doing this routine because you are subscribing to that process.
All right. So I really love what you shared so far, that Black people are the center of providing basic education for Black people. You know,
Yes.
Brother Malcolm talked about how we send off our children to the oppressor to get educated. I can't quote him, but he said something to that effect. Yeah. I love, and the fact that she taught people how to write their names. I remember my father sharing with me that our grandfather, his father, lost a lot of land because he could only write a letter X. He wrote a letter X to write, and his name was Will. His name was William.
Yeah.
You know, William Varner, and he signed his name with an X. And because of that X, some of our white peers got him drunk. He signed off some land, and everybody knew he signed with an X. So they showed the judge the X, and they got the land. So the fact that she was teaching us how to sign our names, that's a big thing back in that day. That's a big thing back in that day.
And that's one thing I tell our people now: don't sign anything without reading what you're signing. Don't sign anything from the bank, anything from schools. Don't sign anything from regarding the car you're buying. Don't sign anything without going through it. When you go to your medical appointment, they're going to give you stuff. Read every page as long as you need time to read it. They're going to tell you that they're going to try to summarize what's on it. They're going to say you don't have to read it. Look here, Black folks. Everything that has your signature on it, and that includes your employer's documents, medical documents, tax stuff from the IRS, everything requires you to read it before you sign it. Because if you sign it and then try to claim you had no idea, they will say, well, the responsibility is yours to know. And Brother Emmanuel said exactly, there's no responsibility for anyone else to properly educate us. That's right. We can still demand a proper education. We can require it for what we pay regarding it, but we can't say, I'm going to show up not knowing I'm just an empty cup. You better pour in there. That is something that I want our people to stop doing that, because that's not our history. That's a lot of, and this is where I explain it. Our people will celebrate our ancestors, particularly during transatlantic slavery, who learned to read and then taught each other secretly how to read, right? Our people will quote the Color Purple scenes when she's taught how to read in the Color Purple movie. How can you celebrate that, but then centuries later or years later, you don't care about reading? I tell our people, don't do any kind of ashe or any celebration of anyone or anything if you have not learned the lesson. Our ancestors, our trailblazers over centuries, including Marcus Garvey and all of them, they did not do their work to be your celebrity, to get you tattoo them on your forehead, to get you to rock them on a t-shirt. They did their work so that you can learn from them, learn their failures, because they all had failures, and develop from them. It's completely 100% disrespectful to say you learn from this stuff, but then mysteriously, you're not going to do any of it. So again, Septima Clark taught how to read newspapers. This stuff is not hiding from us. It's put in places that the assumption is that we're not going to read it. I think it was Dr. E. Franklin Frazier, the sociologist, was among our trailblazers who said, if you want anything to be hidden from our people, put it in a book.
Yeah. I grew up hearing that. All right. So what else did we learn from Septima Clark?
So reading newspapers, books, learning the sciences, learn how to vote on a voting ballot. That's beyond fighting for the right to vote. Okay. And the second point, this is point 2. I should have put numbers up there. Sorry. The second point here, we cannot have protest without actions for changes. So this is in the book here.
Wait. We cannot have protest without
actions for changes.
So you just can't run your mouth. You got to do something.
And instead of always marching down the streets and going up in police officers' faces and outrage expressions, I tell our people, everyone else has figured out that if they do a march or a protest, that is the icing on top of the cake. The cake is the behind the scenes work. The cake is the real action-based outcomes. Because guess what, our people? Everyone else is prepared for Black outrage, Black protests, and Black marches by now. That has stopped being shocking. There's a reason why police have already stretched up the street for you, okay? Everybody's ready. I mean, even in areas, including schools, they let you know, okay, we'll let you protest, and this is your timeline. So they're giving y'all a timeline for it now, right? So the message that Septima Clark had, and this is the book here, Freedom's Teacher, about Septima Clark here. It's not a brand new book. It's not a New York Times bestseller. I tell our people, stop caring about the bestseller books, because some of the best knowledge and stuff that ain't nobody been buying, really. Okay. So in this book, you'll find on can you go back to the slide, please?
Absolutely.
On page 3, I think it's 319, where Septima Clark held older Blacks accountable for what younger Blacks do. And this is the quote from Septima Clark. It's direct action. Direct action is so glamorous and packed with emotion, she explained, that most young people prefer demonstrations over genuine education. So in other words, go ahead and give me protest. But then when people say, okay, now let's come in here and learn some stuff. Let's come in here and do some things. People are like, no. Let's go back out there in the streets. And that's also part of the mindset of our people, that we need saviors and rescuers because it's not us doing this work. I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah. This goes right along, I guess, with her criticisms of Dr. King.
Yes. So in all respect to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., back then, he was very known for getting our people ready.
Getting us riled up.
And these images that you see of our people locked up, I say locked up, but you know what I'm saying, locked up, I'm thinking our sororities and fraternities, but arms locked, marching over bridges and so forth. And that's the racial integration component of the civil rights movement, also NAACP, this idea that you will have particularly white liberals along with you, locked up, and end of scene, like it's a movie filming, right?
And everything changed for the betterment after the march.
Yeah. And this is why I always tell people, we can still celebrate Reverend Dr. MLK's annual day. Black celebration is not based on any official holiday. We can still celebrate, though. I tell our people, don't abandon anybody just because the government says we're going to make it our day. Okay, it was our day first, though. You know what I'm saying? Just like Juneteenth. That was our day for more than a century. We're not going to abandon it just because y'all make it official for you all. It's still our day. So, okay. So Septima Clark held Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. accountable for doing marches. But it's like, where is the outcome? Okay, can you go back to that slide, please? You got to remove the, thank you. And so that's where Septima Clark called it follow-up work. And that's also on page 319, follow-up work. You're leading marches. You've got a whole crew of civil rights leaders, outspoken people. A lot of them are leaders of religious groups, mostly churches. They got people going. They're riled up. But, okay, yeah, we get it. So, what's going to happen next? Is there some work being done other than this? Other than these images that we're told to celebrate? And so, although Septima Clark critiqued King still was very supportive and appreciative of Septima Clark and called her a leader, a teacher for civil rights. So he considered her to have such valuable contributions and such valuable lessons on how to do real work beyond being out there, being hosed down by police and chased down by canine. Yes, that's horrendous, but what's the long-term effects that benefit our people? And that's for any kind of protest regarding any issue, like we can talk about with Black Lives Matter movement. Non-Blacks recognized during the quarantine of COVID that unfortunately, Black people are represented as only wanting outrage. So people can come out, protest with us. They'd be like, F the po-po, and then disappear. And the idea is that, okay, it's all good now, And I want our people to stop signing on to that nonsense. Let people know, because I'm gonna tell you, non-Blacks do not just want you to protest with them regarding their issues. Non-Blacks, if they do contact Black people to contribute to changes, they expect Black people to show up without reminding them of oppressions. Because non-Blacks say we already know our oppressions. That's why we're looking at solutions here. If we do a protest or a march, we're now going to also have a meeting to address this, to do some policies, to do something in place so that we don't have to protest the rest of our lives. And that's one thing that Septima Clark called out, that it has to be more. It has to be more for our people to want that for ourselves. And if our people want that for ourselves, we will increasingly stop allowing non-Blacks to tell us what our message is. Stop allowing non-Blacks to tell us what our goals and needs are, and stop allowing non-Blacks to tell us to be outraged and to protest. Because non-Blacks really want us to be outraged and protest because they know that means we won't be in meetings. They know that protests usually mean we'll be terminated from jobs and kicked out of school because we've been protesting, right? Again, back to our ancestors, our trailblazers, learn that they have done marches and protests for centuries. Learn what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all of them did. They do not want you to still be marching if you don't know that there's also inner work to be done. Okay? Again, Martin Luther King still appreciated Septima Clark. That's right, Brother Emmanuel. We want tangibles. And a lot of our people are bothered by those of us who don't just show up for outrage expressions. And I tell our people, that's because our people have been taught to identify as oppressed, to shout out oppression, and the end. And there's more to it. And again, another example is Marcus Garvey. When you talk about what the work Marcus Garvey intentionally directed in the United States of America, he intentionally did his headquarters in northern part of the United States of America, right? He intentionally had larger following than the NAACP.
What you said he intentionally had, but I want to say he attracted a larger following. Would you agree?
But I think he knew the focus, because there was a tension, because NAACP, of course, was focused on racial integration. And that was one of the tensions that co-founders, Du Bois, Ida B. Wells, and other co-founders had regarding that emphasis. Like, you know, the racial integration thing, we understand the purpose like 2 centuries ago, but then after a while, it's kind of like, okay, you know, can we develop our own instead of needing rescuers? So Marcus Garvey was very much appreciated, surprisingly, in the South. So Southern states. The problem, though, is that the moment that Marcus Garvey said, okay, we get it, race first, we've got the outrage. Now let's do some actions for economic development of our people, because that's the whole purpose of UNIA, economic development. It's not just everybody get on the ship to go back to Africa, right? It's building our businesses. That's the whole Black nationalism component that developed from Booker T. Washington's approach, and is actually quite similar to W.B. Du Bois's cooperative economic. But the moment Garvey started focusing on solutions for our people and not just yelling at the government and yelling at white people, unfortunately, it lost traction, because our people, and that's an example of what it means to not just want speeches and preaches, but talk about reaches. Like, how are we going to reach some goals? What are we going to do now beyond that?
Okay.
All right, let's do the next slide. I'm going to go through these very quickly.
Next slide. Oh, let me bring it back up.
Yeah.
No. All right.
So this is on page 341 of the book that I just showed. Septima Clark stated, liberals, rather than urging bigger slices of the education, political, and employment pies for Black Americans, must begin to find ways to bake bigger pies. All right. So this is something that's very much debated as to whether we can just figure out how to work with what already exists, or do we have to change everything? So that's always debated. So Septima Clark is stating, particularly liberals, because I want people to know, no matter whether people call themselves a liberal, moderate, conservative, whatever they call themselves, almost none of them know what they're doing.
So did she use the term liberals?
Yes.
Wow. So that's not a common, a new term.
No, it's not a new term. Even Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X addressed white liberals as well. and white moderates. Yep. And that's not limited to the Democratic Party back then in the 1960s. It's not limited to them because it includes any collective of people who claim to be counter to the opposition, claim to be interested in social justice and changing how the government is structured. But it's oftentimes presented to our people as Black people as a rescuer instead of us having our own rescues for ourselves and then adding outside resources to what we're developing for ourselves. We don't ignore.
It kind of looks like she's saying, hey, instead of just shouting something has to change for these people, you need to go ahead and change something for those people that you want change for.
Yeah, change the entire framework. And I want our people to think of that in terms of how the White House is shaped. When you look at Congress, senators, how governors' offices, how mayors' offices, how governors' staff, how schools are designed. All of this is designed to have funds. They have money. They all claim they don't, right? They all claim they need more money, which is why taxes increase. That's why I always tell our people, if you really want to be socialist like you claim, just be prepared for more taxes. Also be prepared for less business profit, because that's what more social, we already have socialism in our form of capitalism. But if you want more socialism, it's going to shift further into taxes and further away from perhaps employee pay as well, but definitely from companies and entrepreneurs getting any kind of profit. And so this is why we have to understand that change has to be something larger. And you're going to show a picture of the White House. But change has to be something larger than people saying, well, we're going to use what we already have and give y'all a bigger slice of what we have. Because the question is, are there really enough resources? And the answer is no, there's really not enough resources, because every governor and every mayor's office across the nation changes the budget. And what they do is, of course, they go based on scare tactics. So they give most of the money to police departments and reduce the money access to medical facilities and schools. Now, we do need access to law enforcement, because it's not our role to prevent everything and punish everything. So as Black people, we do need to be honest that we're not saying, that's why I tell people, when you hear people say defund the cops and all that stuff, like I said months ago, you and I did that session there. That's not what most Black people are saying. Instead, it's saying we have to assess what is being provided and how it's being provided. So this is where Septima Clark is saying, don't just tell us that you're going to keep things the way they are and just figure out how to redistribute it, because that's not realistic. Because what they'll tell you is they don't have enough resources or funds to redistribute. Okay. So Clark is telling them that, holding them accountable for that part.
Okay.
All right. Next slide.
That is the next slide.
Oh, this is it right here?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're at the end. All right. So this is where Septima Clark addressed, when we speak about oppressions, we're not ignoring problems within our people. So this is similar to Harold Cruz's focus on the inner world. And this is on the bottom of page 341. So again, the development of the Black inner world means that we understand our own struggles. And I can read that to you. As you hear other noise in the background. Okay, so Septima Clark was addressing that African-American scholars need to speak truth about white America and its systemic oppression, as much as these systems do not exist apart from individuals. There is no escape from the fact that all of those. Say it again.
Whoa. She was writing like that back in the day?
Our people have been writing like that for centuries, but listen up. This is where it's called multitasking, because Septima Clark called it out. As much as these systems do not exist apart from individuals, there is no escape from the fact that all those good white people who support, acquiesce, and encourage Blacks to believe in these systems are the enemy. In other words, we have to hold all people accountable. But this is where the multitasking comes in, because Septima Clark focused on developing our own people. And that's similar to, of course, Harold Cruz and other approaches that also can be considered forms of Black nationalism. This is where Clark said African-American intellectuals need to identify the enemy within our people, speak the truth to our tendencies to place all responsibility for Black crime upon white people, to clarify our unspoken desire for white models, white recognition, white legitimization. It's the struggle to overcome those inner weaknesses that we generate much of the strength, the energies, and the commitment to move us toward the new beginning, the new society, the new men and women, which are our ultimate goal. So that is what's called multitasking, which is what I focus on. I don't allow people to tell me that I'm going to sit here and talk about oppressions and oppressors 24/7, 365. We already acknowledge that as Black people. We recognize it. We can't disguise it. We cannot hide it. We cannot lie it. But it's a distraction when we sit around. First of all, most Black people don't wake up thinking about oppressions in that sense and don't sit around talking about it all day. This is where the focus and the goals are important, and acknowledge that there's problems within our people. And a lot of these problems were not created by the outsiders, because there were problems among humans for over 1 million years. So that's what Septima Clark highlighted. Did you want to say something, Brother Varner?
Well, I love that she said, do not get distracted by disagreements and arguments amongst our people.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying that part. That's not a quote from her. Yeah,
that's not from her. Okay, that's from you.
Yeah, yes, because that's something that's. So I'm going to highlight that because I don't have a quote from her, but that's something that I mentioned earlier because Septima Clark was very focused. Septima Clark was quiet. Like if you look at the interviews, I post about her on social media. When you look at the interviews, Septima Clark just was very quiet. But the quiet was because Septima Clark was not going to waste time on side talks. And that facial expression was also the facial expression that Septima Clark had among these children students, like my Aunt Nita, who was a student, and my dad, who was also a student at the elementary school in Charleston, South Carolina. So don't focus on the disagreements. Can you go back to that slide, please?
All right, let's go back to the slide. The slide is
the do not focus on disagreements. Yes. So this is where Septima Clark is similar to what I'm saying here, because Septima Clark did not waste time on debates and arguments. If people say they disagree, the whole care is, do you understand at least? Like, I'm not pressed if you disagree. I'm just pressed to make sure you actually understand. And then you can disagree based on facts and knowledge. And then we can move on to find some work to do. And so this is where Septima Clark, as I stated on here, focused on progressing our people's solutions. Do not try to destroy each other. Do not try to put someone in their place. Those are all distractions for our people. Our people, unfortunately, have been brainwashed to try to argue with each other, try to destroy each other's reputation, try to put so-and-so in their place, instead of saying, actually, we might have a whole lot in common if we chill out, drink some sweet tea, chill out, listen to each other, understand the different backgrounds, different perspectives, and different proposals, sometimes have common denominators, and we can actually put these into place, which is also why I highlight why we need to integrate our people's concepts, theories, research, and actions. Even when we don't agree with everything, we pick parts of it. Like I talked about with Thomas Sowell, you disagree with what he said regarding Blacks in the South as rednecks, okay? That was probably drama because Thomas Sowell's still alive in his 90s and he's dramatic, right? So you can't get distracted by that though. He said a lot of stuff in all of his years of doing this work for 70 years. if you're distracted by all of that, you're going to miss the stuff that he says that makes sense and can be used. Same thing with William Jewis Wilson. Same thing with Marcus Garvey, W.B. Du Bois, Ida B. Wells, Anna Julia Cooper. Everyone has things that when you hear it or they do it, you're like, I don't like that. You're like, oh, they could have done without that, or that's messed up. I disagree. As Black people, unfortunately, we insist to have deal breakers with each other over and over and over again. And then we're baffled when things don't work and we don't have collaborations because we've already had too many deal breakers. Meanwhile, non-Blacks around the world might disagree with each other, despise each other, but say, we can unite for this end goal, but just don't come to my house for lunch.
So what did she say about how women must address male dominance?
Yes. So they had similar experiences. Septima Clark and Ella Baker had similar experiences. There's also an interview that I also posted on social media about a week ago where Septima Clark just did a comparison with Ella Baker. Ella Baker was very pivotal in many ways, including introducing Septima Clark to some trailblazers. And Ella Baker just was more outspoken regarding gender injustices among civil rights leaders and among Black people in general, because there are gender disparities among our people, even when discussing that offends our people. There are gender disparities because we know who the most outspoken people are when talking about civil rights work, when talking about even religious groups, and most collectives for our people when we're talking about the general notion of our people and not just the work of Black women. The general notion tends to be led by Black men. And I mean, people can use men of head of household. They can think Eve came from Adam's rib, whatever excuse they have. The fact remains. The difference is that Septima Clark spoke about that. She was the first speaker for the first conference for the National Organization of Women, which is acronym NOW. And in that speech, she talked about how to handle male dominance. She said it as a lesson, and you'll hear plenty of Black women over the century talk about that. I mean, Anna Julia Cooper addressed it. We have Angela Davis addressed it. Nikki Giovanni addressed it. I mean, we have women members of the Black Panther Party who addressed it. We have women who refused to join the Black Panther Party because of that issue. Because a lot of times when Black women would join these organizations, they'd say, welcome here. Now you're going to be in charge of the children, or you're going to be in the kitchen, or you're going to be the secretary for our radical group, whatever it is. So Septima Clark addressed how to handle male dominance. One of the ways to address it is to keep focused on your end goal. You don't have to be smiley. You don't have to be gullible and goofy to get accepted. Because if this space doesn't work, because they want to put you in your place or whatever, move on to the next one. That old hip hop, on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. And so that's where Septima Clark is actually a good role model, because as Black women, we can have battles, like battle rap and all types of stuff. But there's still going to be sections of our people who don't take us seriously in this work. Instead of saying, this is uncomfortable, but let's pull from this work and see what it can do for our people. A lot of people just exclude, especially women who are civil rights leaders. So Septima Clark said she's going to remain focused. She knew exactly how to help our people read, be patient with our people. And she said she was not going to waste her peripheral vision on the other stuff. Whereas Ella Baker oftentimes tried to make changes in ways that are oftentimes time wasters. And for our people who don't grasp this as it pertains to gender among Blacks and among Africans in general, because, you know, before we had this language that we were forced to use, there was always what were considered genders or non-genders, even if the terminology was not used thousands of years ago. And there's always been differences in cultures. So that's not a brand new thing. So if people don't understand the complexity of being a Black woman in civil rights work or in any kind of work for our people, think about this from a racial component. What it means for non-Blacks, particularly white people, to add you in as a Black person. They add you in, but they don't want you to be too outspoken. They don't want you to challenge how things are. They don't want you to challenge the power dynamic. They don't want you to challenge who's represented in the leadership. Just come as you are and take a chill pill, right? Of course, that's the component of racial tokenism. And we've all been a token somewhere regarding race, even if people try to act hardcore Black radical. They've been a token as well. So think about that as it pertains to gender.
You use the term token, and I just wanted to highlight that the U.S. Mint made a coin that highlighted Septima Clark. It was a dollar, and I think it was just in the South, from what I can see so far. But she's on a dollar. She's on currency. So I connected that with token. Even
that's not token. That's
I'm trying to make a connection. I was trying to show the picture.
That is celebration and symbol. Token would be if they had an image of.
They had an image of what? All right. Well, Doc, I think you just froze on us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Conveniently froze when I responded to your token message. No, that was not tokenism. That was actually celebration of Septima Clark's. Tokenism is when you're in a space, you know you don't fit. You know that there's a power disparity. There's a disparity in who has the voice. But you go there, you insert what you want to insert, and then you go on about your business because you know everything else is a distraction and a time waster. So if we understand that regarding race, you got to understand that regarding gender for Black women who do this civil rights work.
Commercial time.
Say that they are living paycheck to paycheck.
You will be wealthier.
My wife and I were flipping our first house.
When you shift the way you see things, then your life is going to shift.
Money is a tool for what you want. Money is not what you want. You don't want money.
So that goes to show that you don't have faith when you do not take your money and put it into those accounts to earn interest. When you're scared thinking that something is going to happen, God says, who are you trusting in? Because I'm the one that has created the money system.
Well, I then got offered $350 million for my company.
It says you owe about $538,000.
That the individual and the individual family unit is responsible for filling their own cups.
I went from being homeless and living on the street to owning properties in Baltimore.
And that's why I decided to start a bank.
This is something that Martin Luther King spoke about.
Stupid mistakes and failures. We continued stumbling forward
because the Black community, for the most part, had to go in rent.
All right, just a little flashback. So look, the documentary Generational Flip is now available on YouTube. So just go Generational Flip. You'll find it on YouTube. Thanks, sis. Yeah, pop your collar to that, sis. All right.
That's your collar.
But look, this is Professor Kimya's class. So we've been learning from our great professor, the great doctor. Hey, Doc, is there anything that you want to share? Anything you want to direct us to study? Are you going to give us some homework?
I always do. So we can actually share the PowerPoint slide and I can actually update it. I put the name of the book up there. So the name of the book is up there. And also, I can provide a link, because what I'm doing is I am encouraging our people to increase our own concepts, theories, and research. So we come from, of course, thousands of years of concepts, theories, and research, and then centuries regarding race. But the topics don't have to be race. I'm just saying, as Black people, we have centuries of concepts and theories, and they don't have to be about race. They don't have to be about racial injustice. So I want to teach our people, since I teach theory courses, I want to teach our people how to increase our concepts, theories, and research. I have some posts on social media about general theories, like a theory might have started off about race, like W.B. Du Bois is the veil and the mask. But if you make it a general theory, that means it applies to all humans everywhere. So I can also send you that link, Brother Varner, and we can provide that on the YouTube channel.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Any last words before we bring this to a close?
Nope. I appreciate our people as always. We critique, we challenge, we disagree, we get on each other's nerves, but
I had to pop my ish.
my oldest brother went to Hampton, so
Black and bougie.
So I just encourage our people to understand we get on each other's nerves, but most things should not be deal breakers. Everything can't be a deal breaker. If you need to take a break from our people, that's fine. I want our people to also know that when you speak with a lot of Black elders, you will actually know that a lot of Black elders over the centuries gave up on our people, stopped doing community work, stopped helping our people, because there was just frustration and exhaustion over disagreements, over people being petty and vindictive because of differing viewpoints among our people. And I just want our people to understand you don't have to go all that far. Just pause. You can separate from some people if need be, but overall just pause and think about the work of Septima Clark, where Septima Clark encourages to sometimes shut down your peripheral vision when it's unnecessary peripheral vision. Focus on your goals. Your goal is to teach our people how to read, teach our people how to write, teach our people how to be a knowledgeable voter. Whatever your goal is, don't let those goals be distracted, because outsiders are not the only distractions for our people. Thank you, Brother Emmanuel. Thank you so much.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Emmanuel's always on point. Doc, you're always on point. We enjoy it. Look, I normally don't like dating, placing a timestamp on our shows, but you just shouted out your sorority sisters. So why don't we end with you saying a few words about your beloved sorority?
Well, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We are a wonderful sorority, a wonderful collective of mostly Black women. We are the largest Black women's sorority, and I think perhaps the largest overall sorority around the world. And when you think about the work that our founders did, our 22 founders did, and our members have done before the women's suffrage, but that includes women's suffrage. I mean, we do have fun with each other, but the focus is on economic development, educational development, international awareness of involvement, physical and mental health, political awareness and involvement. We have those 5-point programmatic thrusts. We just do a lot of work as educators and knowledge sharers. We also do education, economic development work as well. And I mean, we know about people like Sor Dorothy Irene Height, who was one of our former presidents. We know about Sor Nikki Giovanni, who was an honorary member since the 1970s. Understand that our sorority is very important. It doesn't mean that we only support our sorority. I support all Black women and Black people in general. But for Delta, that's an example of what it means to utilize resources that our people have within a collective. It doesn't mean you agree with everything within your organization, all right? It doesn't mean you agree with everything. Just know the world does not revolve around you. So your disagreement means you don't do that particular thing. And that's an important lesson. So our Founders Day is this coming Monday, January 13th. We were founded January 13th, 1913.
All right. Well, we're going to end by celebrating the ladies, the women of Delta Sigma Theta, particularly one that I really love, my mother.
Oh.
Calling all deltas to the floor, calling all deltas. We got some here, but we need some more. Calling all deltas to the floor, calling all deltas. We got some here, but we need some more. Calling all deltas to the floor, calling all deltas. We got some here, but we need some more. Calling all deltas to the floor, calling all deltas. We got some here, but we need some more. She may be an Omega sweetheart, or the dream girl of a Friday. She may wear a campus diamond, or her love made a Sigma B. But if she wears the Delta symbol, then her first love is the ST.
All right, nice little video from my mother's birthday party. That was 2 years ago. Her sisters came out and serenaded her. It was a great moment. She transitioned a month after that. So they sang her into glory. Co-keepers, we love you. Take care. Man, we got some heat for you this year. Peace.